Melbourne numbers are still way down, while Sydney chalks up the most number of auctions held in the last 4 months. All the details in a moment, as well as a look through Brisbane's top sale at Indooroopilly and details of a report into increased rental pain in inner city, capital city markets. Back with all the details in just a moment.
With the evolution of social media, marketing of property is no longer linear. Consumers are influenced differently. The Property Show is unique in that it empowers agents to connect with buyers and sellers through personalised content, social media and artificial intelligence. The Property Show delivers personalised, laser-focused marketing by combining new media, social media and audience targeting, and gives the agent a digital voice. See how well the Property Show works, and then let's get started telling the world about your property. See it now exclusively at realty.com.au.
Well, there were 1,042 homes up for auction across the combined capital cities this week, down by about 100 on last week and 200 odd down on last year. With approximately 80% of results collected, that is 810 of the total 1,042, the preliminary results show a success rate of 64.3%. In Melbourne, auction volumes continue to decline, with 189 homes scheduled for auction this coming week. Melbourne's average auction numbers was around 530 each week prior to the implementation of the new COVID restrictions. Of the 151 Melbourne results collected so far by CoreLogic, from a total of 189, 63.6% were successful, while 29.1% were reported as being withdrawn. Melbourne's clearance rate has held much firmer compared to the previous lockdown phase, when clearance rates fell below 30% and withdrawal rates approached 65%. There were 668 homes scheduled for auction in Sydney this week, up from 640 the previous week. Now, this is a record for Sydney since the first week of April this year. Great news. Early results show the city recorded a clearance rate of 67.8% this week, noting there that there are still 120 auctions not reported. So we'll see what the revised results are later this week. Across the smaller capital cities, Canberra came in with the highest preliminary clearance rate over the week of 75.9%. That's quite a few weeks in a row now for Canberra, followed by Adelaide at 60% and Brisbane at 37.8%. Shortly in the show, we're going to feature a property that was sold at auction on the weekend in Brisbane by the team at Leighton Jones Real Estate. But just before we do that, I want to share some details with you about a report revealing some rental pain being felt nationally. COVID-19 continues to show an acute impact nationally on the rental market. That's according to the latest CoreLogic data on rental listings. The report shows pain points worsening in most of our inner city areas. I'm joined now by Eliza Owen from CoreLogic. Eliza, just how bad is it?
So nationally, we've seen that the rental conditions are starting to ease. Total rent listings were down about 10% over the month when we look at our rental listings in the 28 days to the 9th of August. But we're still seeing massive pain points around inner city markets. If we look at inner Sydney and inner Melbourne, we've seen that the uplift in stock has been about 50% in those regions. And as a result, asking rents have come down about 10%. We're also seeing some pain around inner city Brisbane as well. So the rental listing uplift there has been about 10% since the start of the pandemic. Rents have seen a fall, a little more mild than what we've seen in inner city Sydney and Melbourne. So rents across inner city Brisbane are down about 6%. So we've seen some of the largest rental markets have had a big uplift in stock since the pandemic. It looks like the uplift in stock has sort of passed its peak and it's starting to ease, but there is still this massive overhang of supply going on in those markets.
Are you able to put a percentage term on where you think rents how far they'll be impacted, Eliza?
I think when it comes to the inner city market, given that we are starting to see listings have peaked, but they're still sitting very high, I think that rents have further to fall, potentially around 15% in inner city Sydney and Melbourne. Over time, I think it will start to be offset by people maybe in more fringe areas of the CBD looking for more quality stock, or sorry, on the fringe of the metropolitan looking to get to more convenient areas.
Yeah.
So that's one mitigating factor. The big thing, though, is going to be that these areas that are seeing the biggest uplift in stock are areas that have traditionally housed new overseas migrants. It's not really until international borders open up that we're going to see that demand supporting a lot of that stock.
Given that it's in a city in Sydney, Melbourne, and you've mentioned there even Brisbane, I guess we're looking largely at unit developments here?
Yeah, so these are really unit developments. They're big investor markets. In fact, if we look at the regions that have seen an uplift in stock, so we measure as SA4 regions, which are these regional areas used by the ABS. That's how we divide up the regions, and there are about 88 of them across the country. We've only seen 10 regions see an uplift in rental stock since the pandemic, but those 10 regions represent about 30% of Australia's total rental market. So that just speaks to how much of an investor kind of concentration they have, and a lot of it is apartment dwellings as well.
You mentioned there Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne. What about some of the regional areas? I understand Gold Coast is also impacted in Queensland.
So as a whole, the Gold Coast rental market is relatively steady, and as we would expect seasonally, the rental stock has come down because rent stock is usually highest at the beginning of the end of the year. But there are markets within the Gold Coast, so namely Surfers Paradise. We've seen an uplift in rents there of about 40%, and that's having a downward effect on rents as well. So we see rents falling across the region. And again, it's tied to a lack of overseas visitation mainly.
Sydney and Melbourne, just comparing those two markets, I suppose you can throw Brisbane into the mix as well. What about the Melbourne market, given that it's largely in lockdown, people aren't moving around? Can you talk to what impact that might be having, or is that showing up in the numbers in any way?
Yeah, so what's really interesting is that as Melbourne has moved into a stage 4 lockdowns, rent listings have actually come down. I might have expected them to increase, given that if we have people losing their jobs in, say, hospitality and tourism and things like that, that those people working in the industries might have to move back home or consolidate households to save rental costs. So I would have expected off the back of that rental listings would rise. What we're actually seeing is that across Melbourne generally, rental listings have come down. And I think that that could be because either landlords are sort of wanting to wait before trying to rent their properties and see if conditions improve, or if it's just the physical limitation of trying to show people through property and transact and market property and things like that. So I mean, that will sort of help keep rents a bit stable. But I would say that once those restrictions are lifted, we'll probably see some of that stock come onto the market and landlords trying to remarket some of that stock.
Are you projecting that these stock increases are going to continue into the near future, or do you think they're going to plateau a bit?
I think for Melbourne, it will be a case of once restrictions lift and people can market property again, we'll probably see an initial uplift. And that's just a fallout from the economic conditions that come with people not being able to spend money and work in sectors like hospitality. However, over the longer term, like any downturn, we will see a cyclical correction. We'll see eventually landlords will withdraw from the market. We'll see people maybe just not bothering to let. And we'll probably see people who have traditionally lived in areas further from the city might decide to, might be attracted by the cheaper rents. So those things are going to help correct the rental market over time. The big thing that's going to make a change to the rental market is the opening of international borders. But of course, we know that that's probably not going to happen until at least 2021. So for investors who are in the market, in those inner city markets especially, I think it's going to be a tough story for a while.
Eliza, Owen, thank you very much for your insights. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Well, now to our feature auction sale from the weekend. It was held at 156 Harts Road in Drapilli in Brisbane. Sold by Leighton Jones Real Estate for $2,350,000. And here are Leighton Jones and Colin Rosario to show us through.
Hello, I'm Colin Rosario. And my name's Leighton Jones. And I want to welcome you to 156 Harts Road.
I've never known a love so steady. Even gold won't turn your tide. We flow together like an ocean, every low and every high. And I would have you anyway, dear, any way your heart could bear. Even if you had to leave me, I'd always be waiting here. Even when we are apart, I will keep you in my heart, and I wouldn't change a thing, even if I were the king.
A property like this with an abundance of space on a lot this big is truly a rare find. This property is not to be missed.
Sold successfully for $2,350,000. Congratulations to the team at Leighton Jones Real Estate. And just before we finish up, let's bring up again the early results from the weekend. Sydney 67.8%, Melbourne 63.6%, Brisbane 37.8%, Adelaide 60%, Perth 30%, and Canberra at 75.9%, giving us a weighted national average of 64.3% from the 810 reported results from a total of 1,024 auctions that were held. We'll give you the final results when all the auctions have been reported on by Friday of this week. And if you've missed anything in any of our shows, they're all available for catch-up anytime at realty.com.au, where you can also find the broadcast times for all of our shows that are streamed daily on all social media platforms. I'm Kevin Turner. I'll see you next week.